All right, so Fired Up Fridays is now Fired Up Freedom. I just want to do a little bit of a recap of season one. It was amazing. I had so much fun, a lot of amazing guests, a lot of great conversation. It was really, really awesome. If you're someone who wants to have a growth mindset, if you're someone who wants to take action and go towards your goals, then Fired Up Freedom is great for you. It doesn't matter if your goal is financial or personal. And now that we're moving into season two, we're going to be talking a lot of different things surrounding freedom. Now, what I do appreciate is the fact that on the flip side of that was a lot of people who wanted equality of all races. This is how we got to where we are today. Well, hello there, family. You're listening to Fired Up Freedom with Steve Ryan. Fired Up Freedom. All right. Do you ever have moments where you feel stress, anxiety, or it's hard to sleep? Then meditation may be the perfect thing to help you. Come and join our meditation channel where there's 24 hours a day on-demand meditation music. Go to steveryan.com/meditation. That's steveryan.com/meditation. It's time to have freedom from the noise. Fired Up Friday is now Fired Up Freedom. All right, this is Steve Ryan, and today is a little bit more of a serious topic, but it is something that definitely needs to be talked about. So, we're in 2022 now, and we're coming up on Juneteenth. This will be the second year of Juneteenth. Juneteenth was a holiday that was signed into law by President Biden in 2021. And this day represents when the day that African Americans, when our ancestors were freed from slavery. This, according to the historical records, this was the day that the last state of the Union. The last state. Well, it was of the Union, but the last state of the Confederacy, Texas, freed the slaves, and that was the last holdout. So now we have Juneteenth is going to start becoming more and more known because it's so new. It's still like a shock to people, you know. But I will say this. Number one, I'm so grateful for our ancestors and their resolve to move history forward. They went through a lot. I cannot imagine being in a time where we have to be afraid of lynchings and things like that. I mean, we're all human, so I just it's just so hard to imagine how people can just let race cause them to do things to people just because of their race. And one of the things that I'm doing is a play in Las Vegas. And this play is brought to you by the Juneteenth Foundation, Anthem of Blue Cross Blue Shield, City of Las Vegas, City of Henderson, and many other people. And in this play, I play the character of Ian Coulter. Ian's character was convincing Joe, a white man who was an editor. He was trying to convince Joe to run Harry T. Moore's story. Now, let me tell you my impression of Harry T. Moore. Harry T. Moore was like the Martin Luther King before Martin Luther King. He organized protesting. He filed lawsuits against segregation in schools. He was over the NAACP in Florida, and in particularly, he organized it in Brevard County. So he did a lot, and he investigated a lot of lynchings. You know, so imagine someone in the 40s. Keep in mind, this is in the 40s. The 40s was a lot rougher than 60s. And I know what I'm about to say may ruffle some feathers, but you know what gets me is that we as a country just acknowledged D-Day on June the 6th. And on D-Day, Allied forces, including America and some other countries, landed in Normandy. They landed in Normandy to fight against the Nazis at the time. Now, at the same time that they were so-called fighting for freedom, and I say so-called for a reason to point out an irony. At that same exact time, Black people were still being lynched and pretty much in a form of slavery, in the form of intimidation, segregation, the lack of fair voting. It's just very ironic. Now, what I do appreciate is the fact that on the flip side of that was a lot of people who wanted equality of all races. This is how we got to where we are today. I know that there's still a lot of work to be done, but we are a lot better off than we were 100 years ago, even 80 years ago. We are in a better place. I know that the decks may be stacked against us, but we still have the opportunity to build. And I say this because regardless of what race any of us are, we should be grateful for the time that we're living in, and we should be grateful, in my opinion, of having hope for humanity. Now, I want to point out something that happened, and I'm gonna see if I can find something and pull it up on the screen here. So, you know, so basically, all right. So I'm gonna pull this up. So basically, um, in the play, it talks about Willie James Howard. And Willie James Howard wrote a letter. First of all, he gave Christmas cards to different coworkers. He was a 15-year-old African American male in Suwannee County, Florida, and he was lynched for giving a white 15-year-old a Christmas card. Now, understand that today we can people can do that and give Christmas cards no problem. But in the time of 1944, in 1944, in 1944, this 15-year-old child was lynched and killed for giving another child who was a different race a Christmas card, while at the same time we were fighting a war against Nazis. And think about, why did we go to war with Nazis? Because at the time they were persecuting Jews. And so while we're fighting for those rights in the home country, this was going on. All of it is bad. what was happening to Jews and blacks and anybody who experienced any injustices is bad, in my opinion. Oh, but they have to be said. So, but I'm honored to be in this play. I'm honored because this is going to bring light to Harry T. Moore and his history and what he did. It's going to bring light to that. Now, this is about to get a little graphic, but I pulled up some pictures of lynchings, and I want you to see a visual of how lynchings were. It's just, oh my God. It just wasn't right. It just wasn't right. Wow. Wow. This says postcards of lynchings were popular souvenirs in the US. And all those people are sitting there watching. And one is even smiling. Wow. This is just, I have no words right now on a podcast. To think that we win this as a company, as a country. I want to bring up Harry T. Moore. One of the reasons why we're doing the play is because we want to bring light to Harry T. Moore. Him and his wife was killed by a bombing. Their home was bombed. Wow. Their home was bombed. Uh, you know, um, I feel that thinking about these things and what happened, I know sometimes people are like, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to see it. But you have to understand, if we, it was something that the director of this AP Richard said, that if we don't make people aware of history, history will repeat itself. You know, if we don't make people aware of history, history will repeat itself. Let's give an example of how history could repeat itself. Breonna Taylor, 26-year-old African American woman, shot in her Louisville, Kentucky apartment in 2020, almost 80 years later, executed. Executed. And and I know everyone is going to know what I'm about to pull up now. George Floyd, also killed in 2020. There was a lot of protests that year. I remember it. And sometimes people wonder, why is such a big deal made out of stuff like this? And I'll tell you why. Because, again, if we don't know our history and be educated on our history, will we not repeat the same future? You know, I'm not doing this to point fingers or cause anything. I mean, the past, no one can do anything about what has happened in the past. But what we can do is something about the future. What we can do is do our little part. So if we see an injustice or we see something going wrong, report it. Tell someone, speak up. I, you know, I really hope that you take what's being said here to heart. I thank you so much, and I'll see you around. Bye. Running from myself at times, I can't describe the words I try to feel.